Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Today is Friday, February 7th. Common Side Effects is a new Adult Swim comedy which debuted on Sunday. There's been a lot of anticipation for this series since it has the same creator of Max's Scavengers Reign, which ironically enough is now playing on Netflix, Joseph Bennett, and is produced by Greg Daniels from the US version of The Office, the creator of that, which I think is streaming on Peacock. So this is an Adult Swim show. I watched the first two 20-minute episodes, and what am I missing?
Well, it was also co-created by Steve Hely.
Hely, H-E-L-Y, right?
Yep, and he's ran for David Letterman, 30 Rock, The Office. That's where the Greg Daniels connection comes in. Veep and American Dad.
Yeah, so this is like a comedy, but it's also got a certain amount of drama and surrealist take to it.
It's supposed to be billed as a thriller comedy.
And a conspiracy thriller at that.
Yes.
Because you've always been talking about how this year there's going to be so many conspiracy thrillers, and this absolutely is one.
But when you're talking about how long this has been in production for, they had the idea back in 2019, but also this they had the first look premiere back like 6 months ago, and then it premiered at a film festival in June 2024, the first episode.
But it only got greenlit, I thought, in 2024. Am I wrong about that?
No, they actually had this idea, again, ever since I think it was
Not about
Greg
the idea,
Daniels.
but when it actually got like pitched and affirmed as...
So it premiered at the film festival in June 2024, and then it was publicly announced July 26, 2024.
That's when they said, okay, we're going to make more episodes of this?
Yep.
All right, so when they premiered it, was it just the first episode or was it both?
I think it was just the first episode.
Okay, so here's the gist of the show. You've got this antisocial, eccentric genius with no shirt and a neck beard. His name is Marshall. He has unearthed a super mushroom in the Peruvian highlands that can not only cure any wound, but also bring people back from death. Or at least pigeons. No, I guess we've seen it also with people.
Yeah,
It worked with Marshall because he was killed. Now everyone from the government to Big Pharma to who knows what is trying to silence and kill him and his pet tortoise Socrates. Good thing he has plenty of these mushrooms.
It seemed like he only had like 6 maybe by the end of the second episode.
6 mushrooms is better than no mushrooms at this point.
But
all you need to do is stick one in your mouth before you die and you're still alive.
At least with something like Limitless, when he went back to the person's apartment that was giving him the pills and that person ended up being dead, he was able to find like a big stack of them in a huge bag.
But the thing with Limitless is that the people who were after those pills, they also didn't want it to get into circulation, obviously.
Right.
Because even Bradley Cooper didn't really seem wanting to send everybody super smart to become super smart like him. But they were trying to use it on themselves. And the difference here is that the pharmaceutical companies aren't interested in hogging these mushrooms and saving their own lives or keeping themselves alive or treating their illnesses. They just want to destroy it all because they want to keep everybody sick. And that is such a cynical look at today's society that you would think every single pharmaceutical company would rather still only live 80 years as opposed to however, like infinitely longer, just so that they can make more money today.
I mean, every place has said that this show is extremely timely, especially with the Luigi Mangione assassination that happened and kind of the distrust with pharmaceutical industries.
I can see where that's coming from. There's definitely the evil Big Pharma with the opioid crisis, Dope Sick, Painkiller. We've seen it in all those shows. Dope Sick was one of my favorite shows. Even the fall of the House of Usher was about an evil pharma company and the entire family that ended up dying because of that.
It's funny because they didn't even really mention those. It seemed like the creators took inspiration from the Coen brothers films like Burn After Reading, The Big Lebowski, No Country for Old Men, and even like The Fugitive, which wasn't a Coen brothers movie, but 90s films and a lot of conspiracy thrillers.
Well, you've seen the first 2 episodes of this, right?
Yes.
40 minutes of content, and they rush through it. Like, he is going at a fast clip. Like, at this point, we've already seen Marshall attempted assassinations like 3 times. He's trying to escape New York at this point. You've also got like B storylines and C storylines with the DEA agents that are after him, and Francis's storyline. I'm sure hers is going to develop. She's going to end up helping Marshall in the end. So there's a lot of moving elements that's going on. But I do have some stray observations. First of all, it's funny how comics since the beginning first started circulating 200 years ago. 200 years ago. 1837. I'm going to give you 3 different names, and you can tell me which one was the first comic. The Adventures of Obadiah Oldbuck, The Hunters of Narrabeth, or Chester H. Jr. and the Lollygag Gang.
Was it Chester H. Jr. and the Lollygag Gang?
No, it was The Adventures of Obadiah Oldbuck. That was the first comic to ever come into play. But since the very beginning, they've always tried to show the physiques and emphasize how people like are way better. And, like heroes
Yeah.
are always presented. Even the villains look quite dapper.
Right. I mean, like, you literally look at Superman, Batman, like, they always
And not
look
even just superhero comics, but any sort of comic. They usually make the people look fairly, like, I guess, attractive to that world.
Yes.
That's completely different to what they've done in animation over the last few years. And I blame Meat Canyon. No,
Meat Canyon.
Smiling Friends, Carol and the End of the World, Exploding Kittens, Universal Basic Guys, Common Side Effects. These are all shows that we've reviewed and cross-platform. They're not just all Adult Swim shows. And these people are ugly. And a lot. I mean, this guy's got a huge neck beard and he's walking around, Marshall is, and he's got no shirt on for the entire show. We see him naked at one point.
It's funny because Dave King, who voices him, even Steve Helly said he's not really a professional actor, but they just thought that he had the right kind of voice for it. He's a writer. I don't think he's ever acted in anything
Well,
before.
I don't want to judge the people behind the cartoon because I don't know how they look, but I'm saying just these are not just physically gross, but they're gross behavior individuals, and especially with like Smiling Friends and stuff. But in this show, you have the drugged out, needy fish store salesman, awkward dancing FBI agents. Like that's a little cringy to have to watch that. The slobby boyfriend/roommate Nick.
He just seemed like the animated Andy Dwyer.
He seemed worse than that. And then there's greedy bosses, and it's just deplorable attitudes and characters, and the worlds at the same time are presented even more beautifully. So it's like as the characters are shown to get grosser and grosser and grosser, the backgrounds and the painting of like nature. And that's where it ultimately comes back to Scavengers Reign.
Right.
Because the guy who made Scavengers Reign was obviously like a huge nature fan, and he brings that to the core of this.
Well, I mean, he brought a ton of people from Scavengers Reign over to the show. I mean, it was international artists from France, Portugal, Spain, and Mexico. That's why the creatures...
It's a mix. It's not one type of animation.
Right.
It's all of it, especially when they're showing the nature element.
I thought the most Scavenger Reign it got was when people tried the blue mushrooms and you got kind of the look of space and
that's
like
the
cells.
Surrealist thing that goes into the brain. Yeah.
It also reminded me of the Studio Ghibli film Princess Mononoke, which I may have even compared it to when we did Scavengers Reign because of the creatures and the backgrounds, the desert terrain. Yeah, I mean,
there's no way you didn't.
Yeah, it looks beautiful in that respect.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every show needs to do it. And it does feel like there's a lot of shows at this point, even with Smiling Friends, where they will make things intentionally ugly so that in the background they can like relieve your sense of like just cringe.
But don't you think that it's a little different with a show like this? Because it's like this...
I'll give it to this guy since he created Scavengers Reign, that he's allowed to do another show that kind of does the same thing. But we can't ignore the breakout star, which in this show is the mushrooms, which it's funny because mushrooms have just become more and more relevant to television shows. They are their own character. Last of Us, right?
Yeah.
The Penguin.
Right.
They are central to these shows. And I get it. They absorb CO2 pollution. They decompose stuff for us. They are healthy. Some people like to eat them. There's a lot of health gurus out there. However, it goes a bit of too much, in my mind, to a stretch of disbelief to think that there's just a random mushroom out there. I feel like this is where you get into, like, there's probably a good 25% of Twitter people out there who actually do believe that if they just uncovered the right mushroom, they could heal everything. And that's where I'm just like, no, show. There's, like, it takes 15 years to get a drug through all the necessary stuff to become an actual like dispensed way that people treat themselves. And the idea that we're just going to stumble upon a mushroom is ludicrous.
I would tend to agree with you in a case like this because the show, and Steve Healy even said that they were trying to be as realistic as possible, hence why a lot of the dialogue you hear is improvisation. But he said that they were trying to keep it more grounded. They chose a blue mushroom because it's visually interesting, and mushrooms have kind of been seen as alternative to medicines. And
they can glow in the dark, so that's believable. The fact that there's a blue glow in the dark mushroom is not the part that I challenge. It's the part that they can not only cure you from an illness, every illness,
right,
but also bring you back from the dead. That part makes no sense to me.
They took a lot of inspiration from controversial figures like Evan Schultz, Richard Evans Schultz, Wade Davis, and other mushroom advocates. And they weirdly enough said that they were trying to get the Succession and Breaking Bad like market, as well as people that like
That's what
animated
makes me think
shows.
this show wants to be very smart.
Uh-huh.
But when you introduce a premise that trivializes science and makes it seem like everybody in the pharmaceutical community is looking just to keep people sick. It's not the fact that they're not all greedy, but the fact that they are intentionally keeping people ill as opposed to trying to prolong everybody's life. Because if you prolong everybody's life, you keep them as a customer. So why wouldn't you try to do that at least? Even if you had to ascertain these mushrooms and you didn't release the sole uh, content that would make it so that they don't have to have any other drugs, they would at least try to take the parts of it that would keep people alive, you know?
Right.
And instead, they were just trying to burn it in this show. They were just trying to kill Marshall. And honestly, had they just bought the drug from him and like led him along thinking, okay, we're going to develop this. And then kind of 10 years into the line, they just came out saying, no, the phase trials didn't work. Like he could do nothing at that point. And they would have bought up all the source of that material. So I just don't see why killing him makes the most sense in a realistic, if you're going for the realistic way that this would have played out.
So aside from the animation, what did you like about the show?
I like the that it's short. I like the jokes, making fun of like ramen burgers by saying ramen burritos. They did have like a Meat Canyon moment in the Starbucks or wherever he was, where the guy was going by not Gregory, but Geggery. The helicopter escape scene was pretty funny because you got the pilot being like, come on, get in here. And he's like, you couldn't wait one more minute. And then the helicopter pilot immediately dies, showing that absolutely not.
I thought when he pulled out the mushroom in that scene, he was going to somehow feed it to the helicopter cop or helicopter.
I do have the question of like, how long can you put the mushroom into someone's mouth after they've died before it does heal them? Maybe he just didn't want to spare one of his mushrooms to heal this guy who's just saved his life.
Well, because he had already killed the pigeon by that point, right? To show...
No. That was a backflash. So the pigeon stuff happened in the present timeline, but then we got a backflash as to how he got the mushrooms. And when he first got the mushrooms, that's when he escaped.
But as a viewer, we had seen the pigeon first.
Yes, so we knew that it was possible.
Right, so that's why I thought that he was just going to shove it into the guy's mouth.
The least possible thing or probable thing about that was he was sitting on a bench and he just picked up a pigeon in New York. Those pigeons are pretty aware when someone's about to like pick them up. Unless he had seed in his hand, then they might have like landed right on top of him. But yeah, also the creepy baby that popped up in the trippy, surreal stuff whenever they do die and you're in this weird world. Maybe it is the Scavenger Reign world. That was pretty cool to see. And it reminded me a little bit of Mr. Robot, not only because it's a conspiracy thriller, but also because Marshall is literally on the run trying to flee out of New York before assassins kill him. And Elliot, or what was his name in Mr. Robot?
Yeah, Elliot.
Yes, he was also in like the third or fourth season, kind of like sneaking out of cabs after, trying to get out of the city with no one knowing he had done it. Yeah.
So let's talk about Agent Capano and Harrington, because we kind of mentioned them before, the DEA agents. They're supposed to be kind of the B storyline. I feel like they're supposed to be the moral compass, that's even what Stephen Healy said, of the show.
Are they?
I would think so.
Is Francis not?
I mean, Frances is more, she's conflicted because she's trying to do the work thing while also, she's trying to do the right thing while working for Big Pharma.
Exactly, but they're technically also working for Big Pharma. They just don't know it. They're working for the government, and the government is working for the lobbyists who represent Big Pharma.
But don't you think that they're probably going to be the protagonists for the show aside from just Marshall Kuzo?
I will say that it was, which one is Capano and which one is Harrington? Because one of them is the voice of the lady from Carol.
Carol in the End of the World. That's Harrington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why did they get her? Were they just trying to mix and match possible thing?
She's friends with Joseph Bennett. They got Agent Capano to voice because Steve Healy's wife was a writer of Young Rock, and he was also doing voices.
So like the eyeballs are the same from this show to the Carol show, and so when I heard her voice and I saw the eyeballs, I immediately went there, and that show got good reviews, but I wasn't as big a fan of it. So like immediately it kind of like took a mark off because I was just like, oh, this reminds me too much of that. And then I think like the best parts is still the nature. I don't really care too much about the DEA storyline. It just seems as if they are being led along, and they seem kind of obsessed with trying to take down FBI type stuff. Like when we first see them, or the second time we see them, they're in front of a board picking out all the assassinations throughout history, the big ones that the FBI would have been in control of to try to do the search of, but not the DEA. The DEA was not looking into why JFK was shot.
I know you're mentioning that at the time.
Yeah.
But it seems like the big thing that the show wanted to do was not make any, like, main people villains, just the U.S. healthcare system. And it seems like what you're saying is that that's fine, but they just didn't really go about it, like, you feel like, the right way.
The board members of the pharmaceutical companies, I think those are the ones who are giving the instructions to the police to go after Marshall, right?
Yeah.
And also hiring thugs to go and kill him. Those people are certainly evil. Like, it's not just the company; it's literally people.
Yeah, but there's no main, like, villain. There's no like Gus from Breaking Bad season 4 where it's like he's the top dog that has to be taken out.
The one who told the DEA agent lady, right? And he like zoomed up close to her face and he was like, "We have to kill Marshall. He's the most dangerous person alive." Like, he felt like that character that you're saying that's not there.
You're talking at the beginning of episode 2, right?
Yes. Yeah. He did the little like trick with his fingers with the coin, and he seemed like the most evil of the evil guys. So I don't know. Maybe they're just saying that, like, besides the drug companies, there's no technically, like, a lot of these people are working for them but don't even realize it, which I agree to. But I don't agree that there's
It seemed like Marshall was in a John Wick type of world when he was in the coffee shop,
right,
with
very
everyone
paranoid.
with everyone looking at him, even like people in different buildings that were like closing the shades and everything. It seems like everyone is onto him, and
Right.
I think that.
And you'd think if they had that many people on payroll, that it would be harder to keep it under wraps, right? If there was a miracle drug that could cure anybody, I feel like it would leak, kind of like AI today, when even the governments all the governments try to like put a lockdown on it. If it's out, it's out. The genie's out of the bottle. If there's a proven mushroom that everybody sees heals people, it's going to come out no matter what you do. Even if you try to destroy everything that you think you've found, people will go out and like be able to recover what they recover and like remake it. Otherwise, it does feel like the cat's out of the bag at this point. If they want to go for the smartest show, I feel like by the end of this season, we're going to see the whole world know about this mushroom.
I mean, they season 2 has not been confirmed yet, but they said they wanted to go for multiple seasons. So I'm not sure if the secret will be, if the cat will be out of the bag by the end of the first season. But I assume by the end of the series, it probably will. What will you give the show out of 10?
I really like the nature element, but I really feel like the show is overproduced. Like, they brought too many people in, feeling like we want to make this into a really weird show, which is great, but also too much of a comedy. So like, it's simplified the conspiracy thriller. So now it's kind of predictable that he's going to just keep on getting away with this stuff. And for that reason, I have to give it a 6.5, which is still better than the average show, but I'm sure this thing has like an 8 on IMDb, and it's probably been more highly reviewed.
Even though it's early February, it's probably been the best reviewed show of 2025 so far.
This is it's a personal take. However, I don't give a grievance to anybody who really, really likes the show.
It has an 8.6 on IMDb, but only around 100 reviews. Yeah, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Hollywood Reporter said, "It is a series that feels not quite like anything else on television. It's unpredictable and genuinely exciting." You had the Wall Street Journal titling their review, "Common Side Effects Review, Adult Swim's Miracle Mushroom." IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. I probably would also give it an 8 out of 10 just because I'm interested to see where the story is going, and I really like the animation. I know that the creators originally went to multiple places for it, like FX. They even went to Max. Max said that they were going to pick it up, but then Amazon actually picked up the show, then dropped it. Steve Healy was so mad about that, he made a tiny little short, kind of like with Scavengers Reign. Adult Swim got really excited about it and then picked up the show, and then that's why they were able to end up making it. It's going to be 10 episodes.
I hope I'm wrong, but it just doesn't feel like it has the legs to go more than one season.
Are you saying, because I know you said the first 2 episodes got like kind of, they zoomed past the story. Are you saying because you don't think there's enough?
It's a conspiracy thriller. The guy has a magic thing that keeps him alive. Eventually, he's either going to run out or he's going to get killed some other way. But I just don't see how this can be like go on forever and ever and ever. If they get 3 seasons of this show, what can they really expand upon besides just showing that more and more of the characters we've been introduced to get a further understanding of how deep this whole pharmacy control goes?
My guess, because again, I don't know, even if they did get season 2, would be maybe they don't follow just Marshall. Maybe they follow someone else.
Yeah, they already are following Francis a bit.
No, I'm talking about like a completely separate character who may be given the mushrooms by the end of the first season or something.
Well, it's not just who owns the mushrooms. It's just when the secret gets out. And I guess my main thing is like the secret will get out, and it should get out really, really, really quickly. So how are they going to keep that suspension for, I don't know, 20 more episodes? That's just my 2 cents. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.